guys, Braden here with Spring Fever. We're back tonight. We just came off this weekend show at Indianapolis. There was a fantastic turnout. It was great seeing new people coming to the booth and the old familiar faces that we haven't got to see in the last couple of years because of COVID. So it was nice to see everybody and had a great weekend. This week's show is going to be kind of a spin-off of some questions that I got asked this weekend at the show, and probably the number one question that people had asked me was what was the call that I used the most and what call I would recommend them using. So that was, I know that's kind of two different questions, but the call that I used the most and what I would recommend for them to use the majority of the time, that's really kind of a loaded question, and it really depends on where you're at, your region, your terrain, and the bird that you're trying to hunt and what time of the year it is, and that's kind of be addressed in some later videos later on down the road. But tonight I kind of want to talk about every call has its place in my vest for certain reasons, and I kind of want to go through why I use certain ones at certain times. Now, all of these calls that are laying here are calls that I carry in my vest. Matter of fact, I got these out of my vest to do this tonight. So this is a single-sided glass call. This is a cherry call. I've got a copper call here, and then I've got just an old-fashioned slate, and this is one that me and my wife built back in 2010 together, and she's been through a lot, but it's called in a lot of turkeys since then. But we're going to talk tonight on where each one of these fall into my vest. So, when we look at this, let's talk about the uniqueness of this. Glass is going to be very high pitched. This is going to have a great rollover. It's loud, relatively easy to run, and the benefits to this is long distance calling and in windy conditions. Okay, that's what I'm going to this for. Trying to strike up a turkey, locate a turkey. This is one of my main calls to go to. Now, I'm not saying that I don't use this, in other situations, but that's the majority. That's when I use this call the majority of the time. The copper call, again, we use this right off the roost. It's some of its pros, very loud. The distance it'll travel, very long distances, but it can also get soft, and it has a sound, it has a frequency to it that I think just makes turkeys gobble. And whether it's a gobble because of their responding to answer a call, or if it causes them to gobble from almost like a shot gobble. It's just got a very unique sound. It's got the glass call in the back, which I love to use for purring situations. I can lay this on the ground, I can lay it on my lap, and I can use this thing, the sound holes are here on the back, so I can run this thing, as it's laying down and get those sounds out of it. And I've still got a free hand here to hold my gun. So that's some pros and cons out of this. And then there's just the old-fashioned slate. This thing's tried and true. It has the ability to get loud. It has the ability to call soft, and that's kind of the thing that I want to talk about tonight. And where I use these, and then obviously the mouth call. The mouth call I use a lot. You guys have seen in past videos. I use that quite often. It frees my hands. It has great sound. Blah blah blah. So let's talk about when I use these specifically. So, for example, when I go out west, or if I'm in real hilly country, I'm going to use something that's relatively loud, something that will travel, that can move through the terrain, and potentially get a gobble, from a distance. That's what these two calls, this glass and this copper, majority of the time, that's what I'm doing. I'm walking, I'm covering lots of ground, I'm trying to get them to gobble. And then back to the slate. This and the copper, I'm going to start out with this thing in the morning, okay? So this is when I have slipped in, I've sat down, I know where the birds are roosted, or I've slipped in on them while they're gobbling on the roost, and I want to start out soft, okay? And whether it's this or my mouth call, I'm going to start out very soft. And in the copper as well, in these things, this thing will produce very low tones, like any slate, and, just some very light tree yelps. Something very light, very soft. I don't want to just scream at that gobbler the first thing in the morning. And even, once he's off the limb, if I feel he's committed to me, I'm reducing my calling. I'm trying to also read that turkey on, how much he's gobbling, how much he's responding. But if I feel like he's committing, he's coming to me, again, I'm not typically going to be extremely loud. I'm going to be soft. I'm going to be purring, some soft clucking, a yelp here and there, trying to make it seem like it's a low pressure situation if that gobbler is responding to that. If he's hot and he likes me to be loud and get right back at him pretty aggressive, then that's what I'll do, and I can get loud with any of these calls. But that slate, like I said, once I think he's committed, he's close, he's getting right to gun range, I'm going very soft, okay? And I'm reducing that calling for, like I said, for a couple reasons. One, I don't want to just be screaming at him. And then two, I want to keep it soft to where it also kind of makes him have to hunt for me more. He has to look for me. He's coming. He heard that subtle sound, but he can't quite pinpoint it to get him to commit a little closer. So that's where that slate's going to come in handy. And the same thing with a mouth call. Now, like I said, I can do the same thing with the copper. I can be soft, but I still just can't get this thing quite as low as what I can with that slate. That slate is extremely soft. And the same thing, with the glass. It's just got a higher pitch, for sure. It's very light. Okay, so I can get some pretty soft yelps on that as well. And if I only had one, if the rest of these calls broke and I was on a trip and this was the only one I had in my vest, I'd still go to the woods because I could still get the job done with this. It's just easier, a little bit more convenient in terms of the soft calling with like a slate, mouth call, something like that. These, I'm going to be working on trying to get loud. Like I said, maybe this is middle of the day, I'm walking, I'm trying to cover ground, maybe the birds aren't gobbling that morning, and like I said, I'm trying to cover ground and trying to strike something up. We can get loud, you know what I mean? This thing's got a lot of volume. Very loud, and I don't know how well the microphone on the camera is picking that up. It's probably, shooting off the chart in terms of pitch, but every time I hit that, it makes my ears cut out. It's very loud, and the copper's going to do the same thing. Extremely loud. And this thing's going to travel, the copper's going to travel even farther than this glass call. I do truly believe that. Like I said, I think it's got a frequency that's not matched by any of these. So, with having the glass on the back, like I said, I can even soft call with this thing once this thing gets into range. Just some light purring. It'll yelp too. But what's the moral of the story tonight? Everything's got a spot. Everything's got a place. Everything's got a reason. And would I go to the woods with one call? No. I mean, if I had my choice, I'd carry more, but I do try to keep down the weight, in terms of pot calls. Now, if you're my dad carries, and I'm not kidding you, he has an entire pouch that he has all kinds of zipper pockets on that he sewed together himself, and that thing probably holds 10 to 12 pot calls, maybe maybe 8 to 10, but it is a bunch of pot calls. And I always give him a hard time about carrying so many calls, but the thing is, I have to give him credit where credit's due. There have been days, there have been turkeys that either myself or he has killed that I could not get to gobble because they didn't respond to any of the ones I carry, but he would have a call that they responded to. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. There are some turkeys that will just gobble to a certain call. Why? I don't know. I don't know whether it sounds like a hen that they are familiar with, or maybe it's a hen that they're not familiar with and they're curious and they want to bring her in. I'm not quite sure on that, but there have been days, there have been turkeys, several turkeys throughout my hunting career that will only gobble to one call and one call only. Some just like a certain tone or a certain pitch, and that's what they respond to. So you don't want to be missing out if your buddy or the guy hunting next door has got the call that they like to respond to and you don't have it. That puts you a step behind. Everything's got a place. You can't just limit yourself on calls. There's really not the one-all be-all call. Yeah, can you get the job done with just one of these? Absolutely. If I had a one-call challenge and we went in this spring and just said this is the only call we could use, would I kill turkeys this spring? Yes, absolutely. But will I kill more by carrying a variety? Yes. You've got to find what they like, and each one of them has its benefits in certain situations. Use them, use that benefit in those specific situations to make your chances higher in harvesting a bird and filling your tag. So hopefully that helps out, kind of explains a couple things, on different calls at different times. Come back next week. We'll be right back here with another episode. And remember, put your next longbeard on speed dial with a Spring Fever custom call. See you guys.